Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are exploring intent, and we have this really interesting character named Zazoo,
The Zazoo.
and this message about the power of intent.
Oh, yeah. It's a fascinating concept, isn't it? It really challenges the way we usually approach problems. Like we typically try to control everything, map out solutions, force outcomes. But Zazoo is suggesting a totally different approach.
Yeah, and it's so funny because the source material even describes Zazoo as being like called Zazoo by their friends,
Right.
not your typical self-help guru name.
Definitely not. It's kind of intriguing, though, right? Like, what
Ah.
kind of wisdom are we about to uncover from someone named Zazoo?
Right, exactly.
And they start by painting this picture of a puppet controlled
Yes.
by strings, which, that's a pretty relatable image for a lot of people, wouldn't you say?
Oh, totally. Yeah. We've all felt like that puppet at some point, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like life is just happening to us.
Yeah.
But then they drop this bombshell. You don't actually control the events. You control who you are in the midst of those events.
That's powerful. That is a powerful shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Instead of always trying to solve the problem, what if the key is to shift our inner state of being?
Okay. I'm intrigued, but I'm also a little skeptical.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of how this actually works?
So Zazoo tells this story about a friend who was going through a really tough time and turned to meditation for guidance.
Hmm.
And this friend was, expecting to get some clear solution. So like, do this, do that.
Yeah.
But instead, they just received this message: be intentful.
So no specific action plan,
Okay.
just be intentful.
That's it.
I have to admit, that's a bit vague for me.
It is. And that's kind of the point, right?
Okay.
It's not about finding the answer, but it's about cultivating a certain state of being. Zazoo is suggesting that by consciously choosing our intent in a situation, we actually change how we perceive it
Okay.
and the energy that we bring to it.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this differs from our usual problem-solving mode. But how does simply changing my intention actually lead to real change?
Think about it this way. Our thoughts and feelings,
Hmm.
they create a certain frequency, a certain vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And when we change our intent, we shift that frequency.
So if I'm approaching a situation with fear and anxiety, I'm vibrating at a lower frequency.
Yeah, you could say that.
And by choosing a more positive intent, like courage or determination, I raise that frequency.
Exactly. And Zazoo suggests that this shift in frequency actually changes how we experience the situation and what unfolds as a result. And it's not about, denying the problem.
Right.
It's about changing the energy we bring to it.
Okay, that makes sense. So instead of getting stuck in that loop of how do I fix this, I should first ask myself, who do I want to be in this situation?
Precisely. And by embodying those qualities,
Mm.
courage, calmness, creativity, whatever resonates with you,
Yeah.
you start to shift the entire dynamic.
But does Zazoo offer any specific advice on how to actually do that?
Okay, so they highlight this phrase that really stuck with me.
Okay.
Don't waste your time chasing your tail.
Yeah.
It's a pretty vivid image.
Yeah.
Zazoo's urging us to stop endlessly searching for those external solutions and just focus on our internal state.
So instead of running around like a frantic hamster on a wheel, I need to pause and get clear on my desired state of being.
Exactly. Zazoo's all about alignment,
Okay.
aligning with what they call our source.
Okay, now we're getting into some potentially woo-woo territory. What exactly does Zazoo mean by source?
They don't define it rigidly,
Okay.
which I think is intentional, right? It could be your higher self, your intuition, some universal intelligence, whatever resonates with you. The key is that it's something bigger than just your individual ego,
Yeah.
something you can tap into for guidance.
So it's about recognizing that we're not alone in this.
Yeah.
That there's a force or wisdom that we can connect with.
Mm-hmm.
But how does that actually help us in, practical terms?
Well, Zazoo suggests that when we align with our source, our intentions become much more powerful.
Okay.
We're not just relying on our limited minds to try to figure everything out. We're tapping into a deeper well of wisdom and energy.
Okay, so we've got this concept of aligning with our source to amplify our intentions. But Zazoo makes some pretty bold claims about what this can actually achieve. They talk about shifting our day, our week, our year, even our self-perception.
Right.
Are they just being, overly optimistic?
I don't think so. They're not suggesting that we can just magically manifest anything we want,
Okay.
but rather that by consciously choosing our intent, and aligning with our source, we can create a ripple effect that influences our reality in some really profound ways.
So it's not about manipulating the universe. It's about changing ourselves and our approach to life.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we have more agency than we often realize.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we're not just puppets at the mercy of fate.
Right.
We're powerful creators. And we can shape our reality through our intentions.
I love that idea.
Yeah,
But honestly, it also feels a little overwhelming.
I can see that.
If I have that much power, where do I even begin?
Well, Zazoo emphasizes the importance of starting with awareness.
Okay.
What is your current intent in various situations? Are you approaching life from a place of fear, lack, desperation?
Yeah.
Or are you coming from a place of love, abundance, trust?
So step one is to become more conscious of my default state of being,
Yeah,
my habitual patterns of thought and emotion.
precisely. And from there, you can start to consciously choose a different intent. For example, let's say you're facing a challenging situation at work.
Like that upcoming presentation I'm dreading.
Perfect example. Instead of approaching it with dread and anxiety, what if you choose to approach it with an intention of confidence, clarity,
Okay.
collaboration, and connection with your audience?
So instead of focusing on what could go wrong, I focus on the energy I want to bring to the situation and the positive outcome I desire.
Exactly. And that shift in intention can literally change how that entire presentation unfolds.
This is really starting to click for me. But what about situations where we don't have, complete control? Like, let's say I'm dealing with a difficult colleague or facing a health challenge.
Right.
Can simply choosing a different intent really make a difference in those situations?
It might not magically erase the challenge,
Right.
but it can certainly change how you navigate it. Remember, it's not about denying reality.
Yeah.
It's about changing your relationship to it.
So instead of feeling like a victim of circumstance, I can choose to approach the situation with a more empowered mindset.
Exactly. And that shift in mindset can open up new possibilities and solutions that you might not have seen before.
This is mind-blowing. I'm starting to see how powerful this concept of intent can be, but I also have to admit, it feels like there's a lot more to unpack here.
You're right, there is. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore some specific tools and techniques that Zazoo suggests for harnessing this power of intention. Stay tuned.
All right, sounds good.
So welcome back to our deep dive on intent.
Yeah.
Before we took a break, we were talking about how powerful it can be to shift our intention
Yeah.
instead of just, trying to force solutions.
Right, and I'm really eager to learn more about the specific tools and techniques that you mentioned because Zazoo throws around these terms like frequency and shifting reality, but doesn't really give us a step-by-step guide. So how do we actually put this into practice?
You're right. They don't offer like a rigid formula, but they do provide some intriguing clues.
Okay.
For example, they say when you are intentful, what occurs is you look at whatever you are looking at, whatever circumstances, whatever part of your life, and you look at who you are in it.
So it's not about trying to change the external situation itself, but rather like changing our own perspective, our way of relating to it.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we always have a choice in how we perceive
Okay.
and respond to any given situation.
But how do we actually shift our perception? I mean, it's one thing to say choose to see things differently, but how do we actually make that shift happen, especially when we're feeling, stressed or overwhelmed?
Yeah. Well, one powerful tool that Zazoo emphasizes is the power of our attention. They say you look at who you are being and you don't waste your time chasing your tail,
Oh, okay. So instead of focusing on the problem itself or endlessly searching for those external solutions, we shift our attention inward
Yes.
to who we're being in the situation.
Precisely. And this is where practices like mindfulness and self-awareness come into play.
Okay, so mindfulness is about becoming more aware of our thoughts, feelings, and sensations in the present moment, without judgment.
Right.
But how does that help us shift our intention?
When we become more mindful, we start to notice our habitual patterns of thinking and reacting. We see how often we're operating from a place of fear, scarcity, or negativity.
And once we see those patterns, we can start to choose differently.
Exactly. We can consciously choose to focus on thoughts and feelings that are more aligned with our desired intent. For example, let's say you're feeling anxious about that presentation. Instead of feeding those anxious thoughts, you could choose to focus on your strengths, your preparation, your desire to connect with your audience.
Okay, so it's about consciously directing our attention to what empowers us rather than what drains us.
Precisely. And as we do that, our energy starts to shift. We literally start to vibrate at a different frequency.
I'm starting to see how this connects with the idea of shifting reality. It's not about like some magical manifestation.
Right.
It's about changing our internal state,
Mm-hmm.
which then influences our external experience.
Exactly. And this shift in energy can have a ripple effect on everything around us. We start to attract different people, opportunities, and experiences into our lives.
It's like we're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we believe in ourselves and our ability to succeed, we're more likely to take actions that lead to success.
Precisely. And this is where the concept of alignment comes into play again.
Right. We talked earlier about aligning with our source, that deeper wisdom or intuition within us.
Yeah.
But how does that relate to shifting our perception and changing our reality?
Well, Zazoo suggests that when we're aligned with our source, our intentions become much more potent.
Okay.
It's like we're tapping into a universal power source that amplifies our energy and helps us manifest our desires.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually know if we're aligned with our source? I mean, it's not like there's a flashing neon sign that says you're aligned.
You're right. It's not always obvious,
Right.
but there are some clues we can look for.
Okay.
For example, when we're aligned, we often feel a sense of peace, clarity, and flow. Things seem to fall into place more effortlessly.
Yeah.
We're more in tune with our intuition, and we trust our inner guidance.
So it's not just about feeling good, it's about like a deeper sense of knowing,
Yes,
of being on the right path.
exactly. And this sense of alignment often leads to inspired action.
Okay.
We're not just forcing things to happen.
Yeah,
We're acting from a place of inspiration and purpose.
I love that. It's like when you're really passionate about something and you just like naturally take action without even thinking about it, you're in the flow.
Exactly. And when we're in that state of flow, we're much more likely to create those positive outcomes.
Okay, this is all starting to make sense, but I still have one like nagging question.
Okay.
What about situations where things don't go our way despite our best intentions? Like, let's say I'm applying for a dream job and I do all the like right things.
Right.
I prepare diligently, I visualize success, I approach the interview with confidence, but I still don't get the job. Does that mean the power of intention failed me?
That's a great question, and it's actually something that Zazoo addresses in the source material.
Hmm.
They emphasize that sometimes, even when we're aligned and we're putting out that positive energy, things don't unfold the way we expect them to.
So what's the explanation for that? Does it mean we're doing something wrong?
Not necessarily. Zazoo suggests that sometimes there are bigger forces at play, things that are beyond our current understanding.
Okay.
It might be that the job wasn't actually aligned with our highest good, even if it seemed perfect on the surface.
So it's about trusting that there's a bigger picture even when we can't see it.
Exactly. And that's where the practice of surrender comes in.
Surrender. Isn't that like the opposite of intention?
Not necessarily. It's about surrendering to the wisdom of the universe, trusting that everything is unfolding as it should, even if it doesn't make sense in the moment.
Okay, that's a bit of a mind bender.
Yeah.
But I think I'm starting to get it.
Okay.
So we're not just setting intentions and then like trying to force them into reality.
Mm-hmm.
We're also learning to let go, to trust the process and be open to unexpected outcomes.
Exactly. It's a delicate dance between intention and surrender, between action and allowance.
And it sounds like it takes a lot of practice to master that.
It does. But the rewards are well worth the effort. Because when we learn to harness this power of intention, we truly become co-creators of our reality.
This is all incredibly fascinating and empowering, but I have to admit I'm also feeling a little overwhelmed. Like, where do we even begin to apply all of this in our daily lives?
Well, one of those powerful things we can do is start small.
Yeah.
Choose one area of your life where you'd like to see a shift
Okay.
and set a clear intention for that area.
So, for example, if I wanted to improve my relationships, I could set an intention to be more present and compassionate in my interactions with others.
Exactly. And then throughout your day, keep that intention at the forefront of your mind.
Okay.
Notice when you're falling back into old patterns and gently guide yourself back to your desired state of being.
So it's about making conscious choices throughout the day, moment by moment, to align with our intentions.
Precisely. And the more we do that, the more we create a momentum of positive change in our lives.
This is really inspiring. But what about those bigger goals like changing careers or finding a life partner? Can the power of intention really help us achieve those kinds of dreams?
Absolutely. But it's important to remember that intention is not like a magic wand.
Right.
It's a tool that we use to align ourselves with our desired outcomes.
So it's about setting a clear intention, taking inspired action, and then trusting the process.
Exactly. And even if things don't unfold exactly as we planned, we can trust that we're being guided in the right direction.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I'm feeling so much more empowered and optimistic about the possibilities in my own life.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see how much wisdom and insight Zazoo has, like, packed into this seemingly simple concept of intention.
I know, right? And we've only just scratched the surface. I'm so excited to continue this exploration in the final part of our deep dive.
Me too. We'll delve even deeper into the practical applications of intent, including some specific techniques for amplifying our energy and manifesting our desires.
I can't wait. Until then, dear listeners, keep playing with the power of intention. You might be surprised at what you create. So, welcome back to our deep dive into intent. I have to say, before we started this, I thought intent was just about setting goals.
Right.
But now I'm realizing it's like so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's almost like a whole different way of approaching life.
It is a different way of approaching life.
Yeah.
And it can be so incredibly empowering. Remember that analogy Zazoo uses?
Yeah.
The puppet?
Yeah, yeah.
We talked about how we can stop trying to control all those strings in our lives and instead focus on who we are being
Yeah.
in the midst of it all.
Right, and that shift in focus can create a ripple effect that changes everything.
Absolutely.
But I have to admit, sometimes it feels like there are just too many strings. How do we let go of that need to control everything, especially when things feel uncertain or chaotic?
It's not easy, I'll admit.
Yeah.
Especially in a world that tells us we need to have all the answers, control every outcome.
Right.
But, Zazoo offers some guidance, I think, for navigating that uncertainty. They say you are in control of what you are aligning yourself with.
So even when we can't control those external events, we can control what we align ourselves with internally.
Exactly. It's about choosing our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, rather than just letting them be dictated by our circumstances.
But how do we actually do that? I mean, it's one thing to say, like, choose your thoughts, but our minds can be like wild monkeys sometimes.
Tell me about it.
Jumping from one worry to the next.
They can, absolutely. And that's where the practice of mindfulness comes in. Zazoo doesn't explicitly mention mindfulness,
Right.
but it's kind of implicit in their message about paying attention to who we're being. Mindfulness helps us become aware of those wild monkey thoughts without getting completely swept away by them.
So it's about creating, like, a space between us and our thoughts.
Yes.
So that we can choose which ones to engage with.
Precisely. And the more we practice mindfulness, the more we strengthen that muscle of awareness, which gives us more choice in how we respond to any given situation.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about those times when, we're facing really challenging situations, like a health crisis or a major career setback?
Right.
Can simply shifting our thoughts really make a difference in those circumstances?
It's not about pretending the challenge doesn't exist.
Right.
Or trying to force positive thinking. It's about recognizing that even in the midst of difficulty, we still have a choice in how we relate to it.
So instead of letting, fear and despair take over, we can choose to focus on courage, resilience, and hope.
Exactly. And those qualities, those states of being, they create a different energetic frequency that can influence how we navigate the challenge and what unfolds as a result.
I'm starting to see how this connects back to the idea of shifting reality, right? It's not about denying the reality of the situation. It's about choosing a more empowered and aligned way of being within that reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as we cultivate those empowering states of being, we start to attract different people,
Yeah.
opportunities, resources into our lives.
Yeah.
It's not about manipulating the universe.
Right.
It's about becoming a magnet for what we desire.
Okay, I'm really resonating with this idea of becoming a magnet for our desires. But can you give me like a specific example
Okay.
of how this might work in like real life?
Let's say you're looking for a new job.
Okay.
Instead of approaching that job search from a place of desperation or scarcity,
Yeah.
what if you shifted your intention to one of, confidence and clarity
Yeah.
about your skills and
Yeah.
what you have to offer.
So instead of just like sending out resumes and hoping for the best,
Wow.
I would approach the process with the belief that the right opportunity is out there.
Exactly. And that shift in belief,
Yeah.
it would influence how you present yourself, how you network, and the kinds of opportunities that you attract. You would literally be radiating a different energy that would be noticeable to potential employers.
I love that idea. But what if, despite our best intentions and efforts, things still don't work out the way we hoped? Like, what if I don't get the job, even though I approached the process with, confidence and clarity?
Right.
Does that mean the power of intention, like, failed?
Not necessarily.
Hmm.
Remember, intention is not about forcing specific outcomes. It's about aligning ourselves with our desired states of being
Hmm.
and trusting that the universe will support us in the best way possible.
So it's about surrendering to the bigger picture, even when we can't see it.
Exactly. And this is where, the concept of source comes in again.
Yeah.
When we're truly aligned with our source, we trust that we're being guided towards what's ultimately for our highest good, even if it doesn't look the way we expected.
This has been such a powerful conversation. It's like you've given me a whole new toolbox for navigating life's challenges
Yeah.
and creating the life I truly desire.
It has been a fascinating exploration, and I'm so glad you're finding it valuable. The power of intention is always available to us. It's just a matter of choosing to tap into it.
And for those listening, if you're feeling inspired to explore this further, I encourage you to experiment with setting intentions in your own life. Start small, be patient with yourself, and just see what unfolds. You might be amazed at the results.
And remember, even if things don't go exactly as planned, trust that you're always being guided towards your highest good.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the power of intent. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep shining your light.